Q Review Print Speaking to the Blind, celebrating 40 years of audio newspaper production. Welcome to this week's edition of the Herald Scotland podcast, recorded at the Bishop Briggs Media Centre by our amazing volunteers. You can get in touch with us via Facebook, Twitter or Instagram using @CuneReview, that is @ CUEANDREVIEW. You can also contact us directly by emailing information@cunereview.com. That is INFORMATION @CUEANDREVIEW.com, or by calling 0141 772 3976. That's 0141 772 3976.
The Herald Scotland, on Wednesday the 17th of April 2024. From the news section. Scottish Power sorry for energy bills overcharging mistake. This article was written by Ian McConnell and read by me, Corey. Energy giant Scottish Power has declared it is so sorry for an overcharging mistake. The electricity and gas supplier is paying £1.5 million in refunds and compensation after it charged customers above the price cap during the height of the energy crisis. Regulator Ofgem said yesterday that Scottish Power Energy Retail Limited had agreed the redress package after the supplier confirmed that between 2015 and 2023 it mistakenly overcharged 1,699 direct debit customers a higher rate, which should only apply to those who paid by standard credit on receipt of bill. Ofgem said, in weighing the redress package, it had considered the additional strain and financial hardship that Scottish Power's error may have caused customers. Andrew Ward, Chief Executive of Scottish Power's customer business, said, "We're so sorry that a very small number of our customers were affected by this mistake and faced an increased financial burden, especially during a time when energy prices were reaching an unprecedented high and the government had to step in to provide support." Ofgem, while it described the error as a serious matter, said that the redress package would have been considerably higher had Scottish Power not reported itself to the regulator. The average amount overcharged during this period was £149 per customer, Ofgem noted. It added, "As a result, Scottish Power has paid a total of £250,000 in direct refunds to affected customers, plus another £250,000 in goodwill payments, equating to an average of £294 per customer. All payments were made automatically and customers do not need to do anything." Scottish Power has also agreed to pay £1 million of Ofgem's Energy Industry Voluntary Redress Fund, which benefits charities and community projects that help vulnerable customers with energy-related support, the regulator said. Dan Norton, Ofgem's Deputy Director for Price Protection, said, "The last few years have been challenging enough for energy customers facing increasing costs of living pressures, without the additional hardship of being overcharged. The price cap is there to protect customers, and we take seriously any breaches of the safeguards we have put in place. Suppliers must be vigilant and act quickly to resolve billing errors that impact customers. We will continue to closely monitor all suppliers and will hold them to account if they do not meet the standards we set." Ofgem noted that Scottish Power reported itself to the regulator last summer, when the energy supplier discovered that operational errors had led to direct debit customers being charged the standard credit tariff. The regulator added, "This overcharge initially began in 2015 and continued across 11 price cap periods to June 2023, a period when energy prices reached historically high levels, prompting the government to step in and provide additional support. In determining this redress package, Ofgem considered the additional strain and financial hardship that Scottish Power's error may have caused customers during this time, While the error is a serious matter, the regulator has taken into account that Scottish Power self-reported the issue and put in place steps to address the failings. Had Scottish Power not self-reported and resolved the issue in a timely manner, the redress package sought would have been considerably higher. Scottish Power said it reported the technical error, which it noted has affected a small proportion, 0.04%, of its total customer base between 2015 and 2023, as soon as it was discovered last year. It added that it had taken immediate steps to correct the issue. Mr. Ward said, "Looking after our customers is at the heart of everything we do, and our immediate notification to the regulator, swift corrective action, and the compensation package agreed with Ofgem show both how serious we take this matter and our commitment to making it right." That article was from the Herald Scotland. It was from the news section. It was written by Ian McConnell, and it was read by me, Corey. The Herald Scotland, on Wednesday the 17th of April 2024. From the news section. UK inflation cools to lowest point for 2 years. This article was written by Jodie Harrison and read by me, Corey. UK inflation dropped to a fresh 2.5-year low in March on the back of a further easing in food prices, official figures have shown. The Office for National Statistics, ONS, said that consumer prices index inflation stood at 3.2% in March, down from 3.4% in February. It marks the lowest level since September of 2021, but it was nevertheless slightly higher than economists expected. Economists had predicted a reading of 3.1% for the month. ONS Chief Economist Grant Fitzner said inflation eased slightly in March to its lowest annual rate for 2.5 years. Once again, food prices were the main reason for the fall, with prices rising by less than we saw a year ago. Similarly to last month, we saw a partial offset from rising fuel prices. That article was from the Herald Scotland. It was from the news section. It was written by Jodie Harrison, and it was read by me, Corey.
This is from the Herald Scotland of Wednesday, 17th of April 2024, from the Voices section. For Scottish economy doomsayers, this may stick in the craw. This article is by Ian McConnell. For the doomsayers on Scotland, there was some more material likely to have stuck in their craws this week. There is what at times seems like a relentless narrative from some quarters that the Scottish economy is a basket case. Of course, this talk often seems to be based on entrenched political views, including, in many cases, constitutional opinions. And it appears that many of those who would paint the economy in Scotland as being in a much weaker state than that everywhere else in the UK sometimes actually believe their own propaganda. It is not a surprising state of affairs. There are, after all, febrile political times. A general election is looming, and before we even get to that, there is quite the focus on what the next Scottish Parliament election in 2026 might bring. However, for people who prefer to look at the official data and survey evidence on the Scottish economy for themselves, and form a fact-based opinion on how the nation is faring relative to other parts of the UK, the sometimes furious doomsaying may be of frustration. It seems that all it takes to unleash the anger from those intent on doing Scotland down is a simple setting out of the numerical reality, with politics left firmly out of the equation. Of course, we must bear in mind that the economic fortunes of Scotland will only diverge so much from those of the rest of the UK, in no small part because the big policy levers on this front remain firmly at Westminster. One simple and very important example of this is that Scotland cannot escape the hugely detrimental economic effects of the loss of frictionless trade with its largest export market, and the ending of free movement of people between the UK and European Economic Area arising from the Tories' hard Brexit. This example tends to aggravate the doomsayers, in some cases perhaps even more so because they know it is the simple reality of the situation. Of course, people should assess how the levers on business and the economy that the Scottish Government does have are affecting gross domestic product and living standards north of the border, for better or worse, to the limited extent they do have a bearing. However, while economic experts do this to good effect, the work tends to be drowned out by the entrenched noise from those who have either not looked at the cold economic data and survey evidence, or misinterpret these because of personal political beliefs. This noise is just that. It adds nothing in terms of meaningful debate. That makes it all the more important for those who are interested in looking at the official data and survey evidence for themselves and reporting on it to continue to do so diligently. In this context, and given the noise of the doomsayers, it may come as a surprise to many that Scotland outperformed the UK as a whole in terms of growth in business activity in the private sector last month. This was revealed in Royal Bank of Scotland's latest Purchasing Managers Index, the PMI, report published on Monday. Among the 12 nations and regions of the UK, Scotland was placed third in the growth stakes in March, with only London and Northern Ireland faring better. The headline Business Activity Index for Scotland, a seasonally adjusted measure of the month-on-month change in the combined output of the manufacturing and services sectors, rose from 52.1 in February to 53.6 in March, to signal the fastest expansion in 11 months. A reading above 50 signals expansion. Royal Bank observed, the latest upturn across Scotland surpassed that seen for the UK as a whole, with only London and Northern Ireland recording stronger rates of growth. It is worth noting the survey also signals challenges for the Scottish economy. While the services sector expanded rapidly in March at the fastest pace since June 2022, manufacturing production fell for a 9th consecutive month, and the pace of decline accelerated. This pattern was reflected in the employment picture, with the services sector north of the border in hiring mode, but staffing falling in manufacturing in March. However, although Scotland's overall employment growth moderated between February and March, it was last month nevertheless the fourth fastest among the 12 UK nations and regions, behind only Northern Ireland, South East England and the East of England. And employment growth in Scotland in March exceeded that in the UK as a whole. Furthermore, employment growth in Scotland in February was the fastest among the 12 UK nations and regions. Scotland was meanwhile in second place in terms of the outstanding business index. It recorded only a marginal decline in backlogs of work. Only London registered an increase. In all other UK nations and regions, there were significant declines in backlogs of work. Royal Bank observed, as has been the case in each of the past 4 months, London was the only area of the UK to record a rise in backlogs of work. Work in hand fell in all other regions and nations, albeit only fractionally in Scotland, in a sign of a general lack of pressure on business capacity. In terms of new business growth, Scotland was in the top half of the UK nations and regions table, in 6th spot. Overall, the PMI report certainly highlights some bright spots for the Scottish economy. And while it flags some challenges as well, Scotland outperformed the UK as a whole on the key measures of overall growth in private sector business activity and employment. For anyone who genuinely wants Scotland to have a strong economy, with all the benefits for living standards that brings, regardless of their constitutional views, the PMI report should provide some encouragement. For those who would rather see Scotland fail, the nation's outperformance on key measures in this survey might come as an annoyance. That article was by Ian McConnell. This is from the Herald Scotland of Wednesday the 17th of April 2024 from the Voices section. Trump on trial, and for once it's not all about him. This article is by Alison Rowett. Did he snooze, or was it fake news? For all the saturation coverage given to Donald Trump's trial in Manhattan, the line that caught many people's attention, "Guilty, Your Honour," was whether the former US president had enjoyed a nap during proceedings. As a reporter for the New York Times put it, Mr. Trump appeared to nod off a few times, his mouth going slack and his head dropping onto his chest. Team Trump fiercely denied their man had been in the arms of Morpheus or anyone else. Nothing more than 100% fake news, his advisers said. That response is going to get old very quickly, so here's hoping there are a few more responses in the Trump arsenal. It is early days in People versus Trump, better known as the hush money Stormy Daniels trial. Whatever you want to call it, the former president denies any wrongdoing. Jury selection is continuing, and the trial could last 6 to 8 weeks. As in many a war, there will be long periods of boredom, punctuated by quite interesting bits, or in this case full-on cartoon character eyes out on stalks moments. Chances are the defendant, like many others, will at some point feel their eyelids drooping. The man is 77, for heaven's sake. Even at 47 he would struggle to avoid afternoon drowsiness. Should sleepiness call again, Mr. Trump may like to borrow a response from his maternal motherland and say he was not napping, but merely resting his eyes. That or some variation of, if it was good enough for Churchill, ... should suffice. Perhaps Liz Truss backing him to regain the presidency will be enough to keep him awake for the next few weeks. Sympathies go to the hardest working attendees at this judicial bun fight to end all judicial bun fights, not the court security staff and the police who are present in huge numbers. Is anyone minding the shop? But the media. So many attempts were made to capture the moment in just the right words. How does one do justice to the first time a former US president stands trial on criminal charges? Many reached for historic, unprecedented, and momentous. Some chanced their arm with a day that will live in infamy, which seemed poor taste even in these surroundings. It was hard to know what tone to take. After decades of covering Mr. Trump and his excesses, how could the media get across that this was it, that this mattered? How do you carve out some hush when so much noise has been made for so long? Even if this is it, and voters tune in once again for the Trump show, it is not certain any minds will change. The number of Americans who have not come to a view on Mr. Trump has to be vanishingly small. Add these to the number of general undecideds in the key states that could decide the result of the election, and the most important ballot of our age begins to look like a minority pursuit, so much depending on so few. It would help to know more about these very important voters, particularly the ones who could be swayed by a guilty verdict or a not guilty one. In a recent New York Times Siena College poll, a majority believed Mr. Trump should be found guilty. As ever, this was split on party lines, with Democrat voters more likely to believe in his guilt and Republicans his innocence. There was one intriguing detail, however. 18% of voters said they were not sure one way or the other. As the paper's polling editor said, that was relatively high. Crucially, this 18% was dominated by Trump supporters. So there is a lot to play for, and it is not only Mr. Trump who will be under the bright lights. How the media handle proceedings is important. The need for fairness is even more pressing, given the trial is not being televised. In an age of access all areas, this is one place the cameras will not be allowed to linger. Going by the ruling so far about what is and is not admissible as evidence, there will be dramatic moments to come. It will be tempting but unwise to feast on these to the exclusion of more mundane matters. Justice, however slowly and sometimes tediously it inches along, has to be done and seen to be done. How to square this with the needs of fast-moving digital news is going to test editors and reporters everywhere. The pressure to be first will be intense, and the scope for error ever present. It is not just error to worry about. Incorrect interpretation, muddled or one-sided analysis, and plain old saying the same stuff over and over, the curse of 24/7 news, could make readers and viewers turn away in droves. Now is the time for all good experts to come to the aid of the media. At the same time, the media cannot bore the audience into submission or talk down to it. The case is people versus Trump, not elites, media and otherwise, versus Trump. There is a great opportunity here for the mainstream professional media to show its worth, and equally, to get it wrong. Also, at the defense table, albeit metaphorically, are the Democrats and everyone else who has pushed for these days in court. On day one, Mr. Trump described the proceedings as a political persecution like never before, and an assault on America. Perhaps most damagingly, he concluded, this is really an attack on a political opponent. That's all it is. He has said similar at his rallies before, but this time was different. This time he was speaking on his way into a courtroom. Delays to the various criminal cases against Mr. Trump mean that this could be the only one that concludes before the election. If the case against him proves to be flimsy or otherwise flawed, the general wave of prosecutions directed his way will come under renewed scrutiny. So yes, this matters. Good luck, everybody. You're going to need it. That article was by Alison Rowett. This is from the Herald Scotland of Wednesday, the 17th of April 2024, from the business section. Major Scotland Cruises player reveals set for record season. This article is by Ian McConnell. Forth Ports has revealed it is set for a record-breaking number of cruise ship calls at its facilities on Scotland's east coast this year. It said that its capital cruising business had a record 161 cruise calls booked in this season, calling across Scotland's east coast and carrying an estimated 235,000 passengers who will be visiting Edinburgh, Fife and Dundee during 2024. Fourth Port said, "This is further growth for the cruise business, which welcomed 149 vessels in 2023, where ships sailed directly into the Port of Leith, Rosyth and Dundee's cruise berth, as well as deep-water anchorages in the River Forth for Newhaven and South Queensferry." It noted the cruise season in Scotland traditionally runs between April and October. Fourth Port said Edinburgh is a globally popular destination and viewed by the cruise market as a marquee cruise destination with iconic attractions, events, heritage and culture, and most importantly, the city is known for welcoming cruise lines and cruise passengers. It added, Dundee is enjoying further strong growth in cruise, with 16 calls booked for 2024. Their season starts on April the 27th with the arrival of the Seabourn Venture. In 2023, the port welcomed 14 cruise ships, and in 2022, it had 4. Rob Mason, head of cruise at Fourth Port, said, "We are excited to have started our busiest ever cruise season. Cruise is an important contributor to our local and national economy. Over the past decade, there has been an incredible 93% growth in the attraction of cruise in Scotland. 91% of cruise passengers repeat a cruise, with 60% returning to a destination. We are working hard with the city, destination partners, communities, and the wider cruise industry to deliver another success cruise season. We look forward to giving a warm Scottish welcome to cruise passengers this year." That article was by Ian McConnell.
This is from the Herald Scotland on Thursday the 18th of April 2024, from the news section. Holyrood backs 30% hike in Scotland's minimum unit price for alcohol. This article is written by Craig Williams. An increase in the minimum price for alcohol has been approved by MSPs, despite concerns from the Conservatives that the policy has not been a slam-dunk success. MSPs backed by 88 votes to 28 Scottish Government plans to hike the minimum price unit, MUP, charged for a drink from the current level of 50p a unit to 65p a unit. Drugs and Alcohol Minister Christina McKelvey said the 30% hike would help save more lives. She told Holyrood that voting in favour of the rise would show that Scotland continues to be world-leading, with policies to improve the health of people. Campaigners at Alcohol Focus Scotland welcomed the vote, with CEO Alison Douglas saying, "Well done, Holyrood. You have chosen to stand up for people's right to health, despite the best efforts of big alcohol once again to derail this policy." She added, "Uprating of the minimum unit price to 65p per unit will save hundreds of lives and reduce demand on our NHS. This will improve the lives not just of people who drink, but those around them, whose health and well-being can be affected. Crucially, it will reduce the likelihood that future generations will develop alcohol problems." Her comments came after the Scottish Conservative health spokesman, Dr Sandish Gullane, spoke out against the increase, which is due to come into force at the end of September. Dr Gullane argued that increasing the MUP disproportionately penalises responsible drinkers on a low income and those dependent on alcohol. He insisted MUP isn't a slam-dunk success or magic bullet, as the SNP believe, because alcohol-related deaths are not reducing by any credible measure. While he said addiction was a complex problem that requires a multifaceted approach, he claimed the sole approach of the Scottish Government was to put up the price charged for alcohol. Dr. Gullhane added, "They have their silver bullet, and that silver bullet is a blank. Because what is clear is that more people suffer alcohol-related deaths now than in 2018, when MUP was introduced." But Ms. McKelvey insisted that research showed that the policy had reduced deaths by 13.4%, which means that 156 lives a year have been saved. With Scotland continuing to experience significant levels of alcohol harm, she added that increasing the level of the MUP to 65 pence would save additional lives. The minister said that while deaths specifically caused by alcohol had increased, with official figures showing a rise to 1,276 in 2022, there would have been an even greater number of such deaths if the policy had not been in place. Ms. McKelvey stated, "As we have made clear, the policy aims to reduce alcohol-related harm by reducing consumption at population level, with a particular focus on targeting people who drink at hazardous and harmful levels. We believe the proposals strike a reasonable balance between public health benefits and any effects on the alcoholic drinks market and impact on consumers. Evidence suggests there has not been a significant impact on business and industry as a whole, but we will continue to monitor this." That article was written by Craig Williams. This is from the Herald Scotland on Thursday the 18th of April 2024, from the news section. Prime Minister's questions. Rishi Sunak tells SNP to stop trying to lock up J.K. Rowling. This article is written by Andrew Learmonth. Rishi Sunak told the SNP to stop trying to lock up J.K. Rowling as the party's Westminster leader pushed him on a second independence referendum. A clash with Stephen Flynn came at a fiery Prime Minister's questions in the Commons, where the Conservative leader was mocked over the new book by his predecessor, Liz Truss. He was also pushed over his ambition to completely scrap national insurance, refusing 3 times to say if he would pay for it by cutting funding to the NHS, increasing taxes, or slashing pensions. In his questions, the SNP's Westminster leader, Stephen Flynn, referenced comments from Gordon Brown, who told the FT this week, "In the long run, the forces pulling Britain apart are greater than the forces holding it together, unless something is done about it." Mr. Flynn told MPs, "A former Prime Minister who oversaw a financial crash before being unceremoniously tossed from office told the public the truth, and I'm not referring to that one, because on Monday Gordon Brown told the people of these isles that the forces pulling Britain apart are greater than the forces holding it together." So, maybe the Prime Minister can find some time this afternoon to perhaps agree with just one of his predecessors. Mr. Sunak said that he and Mr. Brown agreed very strongly that Scotland would be far stronger inside the United Kingdom. Replying, Mr. Flynn raised comments from the STUC General Secretary, who told the Daily Record that independence remains unresolved and that it can be a very dangerous place to end up in when you are not allowing people to express their wishes in a democratic manner. So, may I ask the Prime Minister, does he welcome their fulsome, wholehearted and warm support of the Labour Party in denying the people of Scotland that opportunity to have a say over their own future? In his response, Mr. Sunak referenced the Scottish Government's new Hate Crime Act, which was opposed by Ms. Rowling. On the day it took effect, she challenged police to arrest her by misgendering a number of trans women. Mr. Sunak said, We did have a democratic vote on that topic, but what I would suggest to the SNP is that rather than obsessing about independence, and indeed wasting time cracking down on free speech and trying to lock up J.K. Rowling, he should focus on what the people of Scotland actually care about: schools, hospitals, jobs, and our new tax cuts. In his questions, Sir Keir pushed the Prime Minister on the promise to completely do away with national insurance, forecast to cost £46 billion. He is refusing to say where the money will come from, and we've been trying for months to get to the bottom of this, the Labour leader told MPs. He can either, this is the choice, he can either cut state pension or the NHS that national insurance funds, that's route one, or he can put up income tax. Which one is it? Mr Sunak swerved the question, but told the Commons that the Tories had cut taxes. We've just cut taxes by £900 for a typical worker. We've delivered the biggest tax cut for businesses since the 1980s, but while we're cutting taxes, Labour is already putting them up. In Wales, putting up taxes right now for small businesses. In Birmingham, putting up council tax by 21%. In London, his mayor has put up taxes by 70%, and this is just a glimpse of what they'd do if they got in power. A few weeks ago, he finally admitted it to The Sun. What did he say he would do? I quote, he said, "We would put up taxes." It's always the same, higher taxes and working people paying the price. Sir Keir said it was Mr Sunak who had hiked taxes more than any other Chancellor or Prime Minister. He also defended Deputy Leader Angela Rayner after Mr Sunak joked about the allegations over her tax affairs following the sale of a house a decade ago. The Labour leader said the billionaire Prime Minister was smearing a working-class woman, while his family had used schemes to avoid millions of pounds of tax. That article was written by Andrew Learmonth. This is from the Herald Scotland on Thursday the 18th of April 2024, from the news section. Podcast bids to solve mystery of body found near Scott's golf course. This article is written by Craig Williams. A new podcast will invite listeners to help identify a body which was found more than a decade ago in woodland near a Scots golf course. The first episode of true crime podcast, Jigsaw, will examine the cold case of so-called Balmore Man, whose body was found on October the 16th, 2011, by a wildlife photographer near Balmore Golf Course, around 6 miles north of Glasgow. The man's body was thought to have been there for up to 6 months, and no identification or mobile phone was found. A post-mortem examination estimated he was aged between 25 and 34, about 5 foot 8 inches to 6 foot 1 inches, and of slight build. A new facial reconstruction carried out by the University of Dundee showed his fair hair styled similarly to David Beckham in the mid-90s, with long curtains parted at the side. The man was believed to be white European and was wearing a blue Topman t-shirt and a zipped cardigan with a Greek Pennsylvania logo, as well as petroleum-branded jeans and black walking boots from Lidl. A Nike messenger bag found nearby contained multiple sets of earphones and chargers, and although it contained smoking paraphernalia, no tobacco was found, and it also contained a spare change of clothes. The case will be examined on true crime podcast Jigsaw, created by missing persons charity Locate International, which works with universities and law enforcement agencies, as well as the families of missing people, and What's the Story sounds. Listeners are invited to help solve the cold case with a community-driven approach. There are nearly 1,000 people in the UK who died without their identities being established, and the new podcast series aims to help solve these. A spokesperson for Locate International said, "As a leading charity dedicated to solving missing persons cases, Locate International is committed to shedding light on these often overlooked narratives. We aspire to release bonus episodes as case developments unfold, helping bridge the gap and sustain engagement, ensuring that listeners feel connected and informed throughout the journey of each investigation." Produced in collaboration with What's the Story? Sounds, Jigsaw promises to captivate true crime enthusiasts and armchair detectives alike. Join in and help piece together the fragments of these puzzling cases and work towards bringing resolution to the families affected by the loss of their loved ones. That article was written by Craig Williams.
From the Herald Scotland, Friday the 19th of April, from the news section. Police Scotland officer sentenced for stealing phones while on duty. Report by Craig Williams. A serving police officer has been sentenced at Paisley Sheriff Court for the theft of 2 mobile phones and a tablet computer. Alan Snedden, 46, was on duty when he took the devices from a house he was attending following report of a death. A criminal investigation commenced as soon as the theft was reported, led by Professional Standards Department, and Snedden was quickly arrested, charged and immediately suspended. Snedden pled guilty earlier this year. He has now been sentenced to a community payback order, including 140 hours unpaid work and an 18-month supervision order. Police Scotland said its Professional Standards Department will now progress gross misconduct proceedings. Chief Superintendent Helen Harrison, Professional Standards Department, said, "Alan Snedden's actions go against everything that Police Scotland stands for. The local police commander and I visited the family to apologise on behalf of Police Scotland. They should have been able to put their trust in this police officer at one of the worst times in their lives, and were let down. This case highlights that we will bring those to justice, no matter who they are. He is a disgrace to the overwhelming majority of our officers and staff, who demonstrate high standards of professional behaviour, serving our communities every day. As an organisation, we know how much damage can be caused to public trust and confidence in policing by the actions of those who do not live our values, who do not carry out their role with integrity, and who do not uphold the standards we expect in policing. It is right policing is held to high standards, and we will always support officers and staff acting with our values and standards at heart. Those who reject what we stand for do not belong in Police Scotland." And that report was by Craig Williams. From the Herald Scotland, Friday the 19th of April, from the news section. Rishi Sunak announces plans to tackle sick note culture. Report by Josh Carmichael. Rishi Sunak has announced plans to review work capability assessments, saying hundreds of thousands of benefit recipients with less severe conditions will now be expected to work. The Prime Minister is now being accused of a full-on assault on disabled people after a speech in London today where he spoke of the moral mission to reform welfare. He repeatedly stressed that the system as it stands is letting people down by not being focused enough on the work they might be able to do. He insists the changes, including benefits being stopped if someone does not comply with conditions set by a work coach and a pledge to tighten the work capability assessment, WCA, are not solely about cutting costs. He said, "Right now, the gateway to ill health benefits is writing too many off, leaving them the wrong type of support and with no expectation of trying to find a job with all the advantages that brings." In 2011, 20% of those doing a work capability assessment were deemed unfit to work, but the latest figure now stands at 65%. That's wrong. People are not 3 times sicker than they were a decade ago, and the world of work has changed dramatically. Of course, those with serious debilitating conditions should never be expected to work, but if you have a low-level mobility issue, your employer could make some reasonable adjustments, perhaps enabling you to work from home. And if you're feeling anxious or depressed, then of course you should get the support and treatment you need to manage your condition. But that doesn't mean we should assume that you can't engage in work. That's not going to help you, and it's not fair on everyone else either. So, we're going to tighten the work capability assessment, such as hundreds of thousands of benefit recipients with less severe conditions will now be expected to engage in the world of work. Other proposed changes by Mr. Sunak included having so-called specialist working health professionals charged with responsibility for issuing fit notes instead of GPs, in a bid to end the sick note culture. Disability Equality Charity Scope has questioned whether the announcements are being driven by bringing costs down rather than how we support disabled people. Following the speech, the charity described proposals as feeling like a full-on assault on disabled people, branding them dangerous and saying they risk leaving disabled people destitute. James Taylor of the charity said calls were pouring into our helpline from concerned disabled people. He said, in a cost of living crisis, looking to slash disabled people's income by hitting PIP is a horrific proposal. Sanctions and ending claims will only heap more misery on people at the sharp end of our cost of living crisis. The Prime Minister continued by detailing plans for new legislation to prevent fraudsters from exploiting the natural compassion and generosity of the British people. The Prime Minister said, "For me, it is a fundamental duty of government to make sure that hard work is always rewarded. We are preparing a new fraud bill for the next Parliament, which will align DWP, Department for Work and Pensions, with HMRC, His Majesty's Revenue and Customs, so that we treat benefit fraud like tax fraud, with new powers to make seizures and arrest, but also enable penalties to be applied to a wider set of fraudsters through a new civil penalty. Because when people see others in their community gaming the system that their taxes pay, it erodes support for the very principle of the welfare state." He rejected suggestions that the reforms were lacking in compassion, saying the exact opposite is true. Although a trade union representing physiotherapists has said long NHS waiting lists are driving up levels of worklessness over a sick note culture, they have said that the Prime Minister should take a deeper look into the causes closer to home. Ash James, Director of Practice and Development at the Chartered Society of Physiotherapy, said, "Too many people are being signed off sick, but the Prime Minister should look closer to home for the causes. There are long waiting times for NHS services for musculoskeletal conditions such as back and neck pain, the second most common reasons for sickness absence. Long waits lead to more complex problems, and we know that the greater amount of time someone is off work, the less likely they are ever to return." And that report was written by Josh Carmichael. From the Herald Scotland, Monday the 22nd of April, from the politics section. Exclusive. Green ministers voting to drop 2030 target may hit brand, by Kathleen Nutt. Scottish Greens will be weighing any potential damage to their party's brand and electoral fortunes, and the chances of Humza Yousaf remaining as SNP leader and First Minister, when they decide whether to stick with the Butte House Agreement next month, the Herald has been told. The member said a future vote in Holyrood on legislation to drop the 2030 target would be very much on members' minds, as both Patrick Harvie and Lorna Slater, as government ministers, would be required to support the move. The consideration has been given as the party prepares for a vote in the BHA at an extraordinary general meeting of the party called after demands by members following the scrapping of a key pledge to reduce carbon emissions by 75% by 2030 from their 1990 level. Speaking to the Herald, one member said among the issues activists will be looking before making their decisions will be any implications for their party if Mr Yousaf has to step down as SNP leader and First Minister, faced with his own internal difficulties in his party. Kate Forbes, seen as a possible successor to Mr Yousaf, said last year the BHA should be repealed and the SNP should operate again as a one-party minority government. The Green activist spoke out after the Herald on Sunday revealed that the SNP is looking to a future leadership contest amid fears over how the party will do at the general election expected later this year. There is the possibility that Humza Yousaf will go after the UK general election, so would it make more sense for us to leave now and repair any reputational damage that we've had within the next 2 years, or wait and be potentially kicked out of government by whoever becomes First Minister? They said. Other factors shaping members' thinking ahead of the EGM vote included what measures were being proposed to get the climate action they want, what the government was doing to support trans health issues, and the NHS more widely, as well as tackling the cost of living and supporting the economy. The member also told the Herald that there was concern in the party that a vote in favour of abandoning the 2030 target by Mr Harvey and Ms Slater could damage the Scottish Greens brand and electoral fortunes. Environmental campaigners have been highly critical of the scrapping of the pledge. Under the cooperation agreement, Mr Harvey and Ms Slater are required as junior ministers to support government legislation and would be expected to resign their roles if they cannot do so. As the target to cut carbon emissions by 75% is enshrined in law, ministers will need to bring in new legislation to overturn an existing law. It is understood the government plans to bring forward legislation to drop the 2030 target before the summer recess begins in June. Amid anger from Greens activists, the member told the Herald that voting for the legislation could damage the party's brand and cause it to lose support. It could have a really damaging electoral impact, they said. We are the Scottish Green Party. If we are not going to be seen to be standing up for the environment, who will? They added, voters look to us to stand up for the environment. This potentially has really damaging consequences not only for our brand, but also for the faith in our political system. Asked what would happen if Mr Harvey and Ms Slater vote to drop the 2030 target, another member said the move would provoke a lot of anger. They said, I think there would be a lot of anger, and I think that anger would perhaps be directly, perhaps less at the Butte House Agreement, and perhaps more at the leaders themselves. I think that would not be in a position that they would want to find themselves in. Cabinet Secretary for Net Zero, Mary McCallan, said the 2045 target remained for Scotland to be carbon neutral, as she set out a package of measures aimed at delivering that ambition. They included plans to deliver a new national integrated ticketing system for public transport, as well as setting up of a climate assembly, a tripling of the number of charge points available for electric vehicles, in a bid to encourage more people to switch away from petrol and diesel cars. Edinburgh City Councillor Chaz Booth said last night he will be looking closely at the details of the Scottish Government's new proposals. He said the dropping of the 2030 target was not unexpected following the report last month by the Climate Change Committee. However, he wanted to know what would be replacing the 2030 target. Anyone who has read last month's Climate Change Committee report will recognise that it is no longer feasible to meet the 75% target by 2030. I think everybody accepts that. What I would find difficult to accept is if the Scottish Government were to remove that and not replace it with anything else. There was talk in the ministerial statement of 5-year carbon budgets. It's not clear to me that these would be legally binding or how ambitious it would be. What I will be doing as a member going into the EGM, I will be looking for more information about what will replace the 2030 target. Appearing on BBC Scotland yesterday, Mr Harvey admitted he did not know if the pact with the SNP will continue. This is a moment that is critical for the future of climate policy in Scotland, which is, the reason Greens are in politics in the first place, he said. It's critical to the future of our party as well, and over the next few weeks we have probably the most important decision to make that we've ever had to make about the future of our party. And I want to make sure that we're all listening to each other and making sure that we genuinely understand and share not just a sense of urgency and the deep disappointment and anger about the fact that Scotland is not on track at the moment, but a focus and determination on action. He said he feared if his party voted to pull out of the agreement, it would strengthen the position of SNP critics of the BHA such as Fergus Ewing, who has opposed several policies championed by the Greens. My worry is that, if we walked away at this point, we would decelerate the climate action. We would see the hand strengthened of the likes of Fergus Ewing, backbencher in the SNP now, who's constantly popping up and having a go at environmental policy and urging the government to slow down, he said. He cited achievements including rent controls, scrapping peak time rail fares and free bus travel for young people. Scottish Conservatives chairman Craig Hoy said, Patrick Harvie takes no accountability for his party's shameful record in government. Both he and Lorna Slater, Minister for Green Skills, Circular Economy and Biodiversity, have spent the last 3 years pitifully trading environmentalism for nationalism to the fury of their members who now want out of this toxically incompetent coalition. First Minister Humza Yousaf is so weak that he has lost any authority he had, and, even after the disaster they've been in government, it is still the Greens calling the shots. If Humza Yousaf had any backbone, he would be pulling the plug himself on this shambolic deal which is harming Scotland's economy and jeopardising our oil and gas industry. Instead, he is at the mercy of the Green vote, and the coalition of chaos he inherited from Nicola Sturgeon is now hanging by a thread. And that article was an exclusive by Kathleen Nutt. From the Herald Scotland, Monday the 22nd of April, from the news section, MS Awareness Week, patients embarrassed to share symptoms. Report by Helen McArdle, health correspondent. Nearly half of people living with multiple sclerosis have felt too embarrassed by their symptoms to seek medical help, according to a new survey. More than 250 patients in Scotland were asked about their experiences with the incurable neurological condition ahead of MS Awareness Week, which begins today, Monday the 22nd of April. The vast majority, 85%, said they had felt embarrassed by at least one of their symptoms since being diagnosed. 3/4 of MS patients said they would hide details of their symptoms due to embarrassment, and 43% said this even extended to seeking medical help. Almost 2/3 of patients, 61%, said they had avoided telling family members about some of their symptoms. Half of respondents to the MS Unfiltered survey said they had felt embarrassed by issues such as their walking. Well over half, 58%, said that seeing more representation of people living with these types of embarrassing symptoms would give them confidence to talk about them. Morna Simpkins, director of MS Society Scotland, said the findings were heartbreaking. Thanking the patients who had taken part in the research, she added, MS is hard enough to live with, but no one should be missing out on vital healthcare, flexibility at work or support from family and friends because they're too embarrassed to talk about what they're experiencing. We hope that highlighting some of the less talked about symptoms during MS Awareness Week will encourage people to speak out and seek the support they deserve. Scotland has some of the highest rates of MS in the world. In 2019, research by Edinburgh University estimated that women living in Orkney had a 1 in 50 lifetime risk of developing it. It is much more common in northern regions and rates are twice as high in females than males. Although MS can develop at any age, it's most commonly diagnosed in people in their 20s, 30s or 40s. It occurs when the immune system mistakenly attacks the protective coating surrounding nerves in the brain and spinal cord, resulting in cumulative damage and disability over time. Symptoms can include bladder problems, difficulty with balance and muscle spasms. Carrie Robinson, 53, was diagnosed with relapsing remitting MS in 2018. When a bad relapse a few years ago left her struggling to walk, she kept her symptoms hidden from all but her closest family. Mrs. Robinson, from Terregles in Dumfries, said, "It happened during the COVID-19 lockdown, and the fact we weren't socialising or seeing people as a normal meant I was able to hide what was happening to me from everyone except my husband and my stepdaughter. Mrs. Robinson said she didn't want people to view me differently or cause unnecessary worry. She added, "My balance has always been a big worry for me, as I feel self-conscious about people seeing me and making assumptions that I'm maybe under the influence or just clumsy. I have also worried that if people knew about my condition, they might not want to include me in plans and would make assumptions about me based on ignorance of the condition. There are still times when I choose not to share my condition with people. I am not embarrassed by it, but I don't want to be defined by my MS. I want people to see me for the other things I do and that I am. I don't want to be viewed differently or treated differently." Dr. Panna Mukit, a GMP in Balmullo, Fife, who also teaches medical students at St Andrews University, said she invites patients with MS to share their experience of diagnoses and the impact of the condition on their lives with her undergraduates. She added, "It is crucial that patients feel comfortable discussing sensitive issues or embarrassing symptoms with a medical professional. These issues can significantly impact their quality of life, and there are measures we can take to mitigate the effects of these symptoms on their daily functioning and well-being. There is no need to suffer in silence. We are here to help and have heard it all before. If verbal communication of these issues proves challenging, I encourage patients to write them down and hand them to their GP during an appointment, or send them into a practice before a phone consultation. This allows the GP to prepare beforehand. We look forward to hopefully hearing from patients who have been encouraged by the MS Unfiltered campaign to seek support for symptoms they previously found difficult to discuss." And that article was written by Helen McCardle.
From the Herald, Monday, 22nd of April 2024. Sports section. Christian Horner denies Formula One is boring with Max Verstappen's dominance. By Sport Online. Christian Horner has knocked back criticism that Max Verstappen's stranglehold in Formula One is boring by describing his star driver's unstoppable form as a golden moment. Verstappen claimed his fourth win from the 5 rounds so far this season, with a commanding drive at Sunday's Chinese Grand Prix to establish a 25-point championship lead. The Dutch driver has failed a triumph at only 2 of his last 23 races staged in the sport, and he is overwhelmingly favourite to secure a 4th world crown in as many seasons. Speaking prior to Sunday's race, Lando Norris, who finished runner-up to Verstappen in Shanghai, admitted that seeing the same driver win without a fight is boring and a turn-off for fans. But addressing claims that Verstappen's dominance is damaging the sport, Red Bull team principal Horner said, "You have to appreciate success. Max is a special talent, and this is a golden moment for him. As we have seen with every single driver in the past, it doesn't last forever. It's about enjoying the moment and being in the moment, and there are no guarantees we can give him a car like this for the next 5 years. Max is just a metronome. The pace he showed last year, he has continued that through. And since the last Chinese Grand Prix in 2019, he's won 50% of all the races. He's won 21 out of the last 23 races. He's in fantastic form, at one with the car and the team, and enjoying his racing. Verstappen also won the first sprint round of the season in Shanghai. The dash to the checkered flag took place before qualifying for Sunday's main event in a rejig this year. Verstappen, aged 26, has often criticised the format, and although he agreed the new schedule is better than in previous years, he urged Formula One bosses not to increase the number of sprints, which is set at 6 this season. The sprint format was more straightforward than it had been, but let's not overdo it, said the triple world champion. We're already doing 24 races in the season and 6 of these sprint events too. I guess it sells better and the television audience's numbers increase, but it also increases the pressure on the mechanics to ensure everything is tip-top. So we have to deal with it, but let's not now think that we need 12 of these sprints because it will take its toll on people and in the sport. That article was by Herald Online.
From the Herald Scotland, Monday the 22nd of April, from the Voices section. Monday interview, Joyce Young, dressing mothers of the bride with empathy. by business correspondent Christy Dorsey. With clients including Judy Murray and Michelle Obama, Joyce Young OBE has more than 30 years' experience in creating bespoke styles for brides and mothers of the bride. Registered in 1993 as By Storm Limited and trading as Joyce Young, the business has twin bases in Glasgow and London. What do you do? We design, make and sell made-to-measure luxury women's special occasion wear that is mainly worn to weddings. We have 5 collections: bridal, special occasion, contemporary tartan, our signature collection and casual chic daywear that is produced in our manufacturing unit adjacent to our showroom in Glasgow. Clients can browse and purchase our bespoke collections along with other carefully chosen items from like-minded designers by appointment at our salons. Who are your customers? We only sell our designs from our own shops in London and Glasgow direct to the client in the UK and overseas. We don't wholesale the collections, therefore they are very exclusive. What is your annual turnover? More than £1 million. How many people do you employ? 15. Why did you set up your own business? I had previously designed for M&S and found that while it gave me a good business grounding, as a designer, my ideas were limited by price. Starting with the cost of the fabric and trying to work to an unrealistic price point was frustrating. I wanted to use my creativity and love of quality, texture and colour in fabrics rather than to be so restricted. What do you least enjoy? Administration and accounting. I enjoy most aspects of running the business, but when it comes to looking at pages of figures, my first accountant used to say he could see the shutters come down. What are your ambitions for the business? I am passionate about helping women find confidence in a personal style of dress. I have spent almost 50 years designing clothes. I have enormous empathy now with ladies of an age where their children are getting married. There doesn't seem to be one word to describe us that is flattering, though we are all girls at heart. It's an age group which has been overlooked by designers and marketing companies. Wearing the right clothes for the right occasion gives joy and confidence and puts a smile on our faces and a spring in our step. Our casual chic and signature collections are designed to flatter by being well cut to skirt over the tummy, but not overwhelm with fabric. Here is where I see the business could grow beyond our bespoke creations. Our collections are designed and manufactured in our own production unit in Glasgow and will never compete with high street prices. Our clients appreciate good design, high quality, perfect fit luxurious fabrics and unparalleled service. They are happy to pay the extra in the knowledge that they have an outfit individually made for them and they are unlikely to bump into another one exactly the same. What single thing would most help? Investment and collaboration to expand the daywear collection and the contemporary tartan designs. Both collections address a gap in the market. I'm sure collaboration with the right company could take what we have built and move it up a few levels. None of our children are interested in going into the business, so there is no one to pass it on to. This, however, could be an opportunity for the right person or company to grow what has been established over 30 years beyond our own vision. What is the most valuable lesson you have learned? You can't do everything yourself and your business is only as good as the team around you. Where do you find yourself most at ease? I enjoy most aspects of the business, but I particularly love being in our production unit when we are creating new designs. It's exciting to see the initial ideas and sketches come to life. The pinnacle is seeing them on the models, on the catwalk with the bright lights and music on and on photo shoots. I feel so proud of my team. The very best moments are when our clients collect our dresses and outfits and put them on for the final time in the shop before taking them home before their weddings. I always photograph our lovely mothers at the collection, and the pure joy and disbelief that they can look so amazing is a feeling I wish I could bottle. Our whole team gets such a kick out of the pleasure our clients display when they see themselves in the finished garment. Both in London and Glasgow, these are the best moments. Our clients are our best adverts. I tell them when they leave, thank you for being such an amazing ambassador for us. Congratulations, you're now part of our marketing team. If you weren't in your current role, what job would you most fancy? I love photography. I enjoy taking pictures of our clients and models and seem to have an eye for a good composition. What phrase or quotation has inspired you the most? Success is not the key to happiness. Happiness is the key to success. If you love what you are doing, you will be successful. What is the best book you have ever read? Why is it the best? How to Win Friends and Influence People is one of the most recent books I have read, and the lessons it teaches in communication are so interesting and invaluable. After all, absolutely everything comes down to communication. Listening and not jumping in before thinking. Finding out what will make the other person happy while achieving your end goals has got to be an essential read for everybody. What has been your most challenging moment in life or business? There have been many ups and downs over 31 years since we launched the company. I guess the scariest was the 23rd of March 2020 when we were closed down because of COVID. We had hundreds of outfits at various stages of readiness for weddings and no idea what was going to happen. Weddings were cancelled, with some brides having 4 different dates before they finally got married. When we did get back to work, it threw our production into chaos as the dates were postponed for 1 or 2 years, and as we made to measure, no one wanted to come in for fittings till closer to the new dates of wedding. It was a challenging time, but we survived to tell the tale. What do you now know that you wish you had known when starting out in your career? As a workaholic, I've spent my life living and breathing the business. I don't regret it as it is my passion, and I'm privileged to have been able to have a career that I have enjoyed so much. In that article was written by Christy Dorsey, business correspondent, and read by me, Ian McKenna.
The Herald on the 23rd of April and the news section. New safe stay 225 bed hostel to open in Cowgate, Edinburgh by Brian Donnelly. A new 225 bed hostel is to open on a historic street in the Scottish capital in June. Safe Stay, the owner and operator of the international brand of hostels, told the Herald its new premises in Edinburgh demonstrates an ongoing commitment to expanding its portfolio across the UK. Set to open in June 2024, Edinburgh Cowgate will be housed in a beautiful and spacious Grade A listed building situated on one of the oldest thoroughfares in the Scottish capital, Safe Stay said. It added Cowgate, historically used as the route for driving cattle to market since the 1490s, is now renowned for its vibrant pub, club, bar, restaurant and cafe scene. It's conveniently located within walking distance of Edinburgh's most popular attractions and sites, including the Royal Mile and Edinburgh Castle. Once renovations are completed, Safe Stay Edinburgh Cowgate will provide ample commune spaces, cafe bar, and 225 beds in various room configurations, from 8-bed dorms to 2-bed private rooms with ensuite facilities, which is said is typical of all Safe Stay hostels. Safe Stay announced in December it had agreed to acquire the freehold property, which until a few years ago operated as a hostel, for cash consideration of £4.3 million. It said that Edinburgh is a city that the company knows well, having owned and operated a successful 615-bed hostel for 6 years in the city until the pandemic in 2021, when it was sold for £16 million. Edinburgh is a leading European city, attracting large numbers of tourists and visitors every year, many of whom are looking for central and affordable accommodation, Safe Stay added. Peter Zilke, Chief Operating Officer of Safe Stay, said, "Operating in Edinburgh demonstrates Safe Stay's ongoing commitment to expanding our portfolio in the UK and across Europe's most exciting destinations. Safe Stay Edinburgh Cowgate will offer travellers the perfect blend of modern comfort and value for money, serving as an exceptional base from which to explore this culturally rich city." Larry Lippman, Safe Stay chairman, said at the time of acquisition, "We never wanted to leave Edinburgh for long and are delighted to return and link up with our other Scottish site in Glasgow." He added, "Edinburgh is a truly stunning city and a key destination for millions of young travellers to visit. The property is superbly positioned right in the centre with easy access to all the main attractions, and we'll feel confident, knowing this market as we do, that it will be a strong contributor to the group. Our trading performance over the last 18 months since we have been allowed to trade post-pandemic has shown that our market is in good health. SafeStay has also hailed its first management contract with the announcement of the opening of SafeStay Calpa Seafront, a 120-bed property located on Spain's Costa Blanca. The firm has 18 hostels in 15 locations across 12 countries: the UK, Spain, Austria, Belgium, Czech Republic, Germany, Greece, Italy, Poland, Portugal and Slovakia. And that was by Brian Donnelly. The Herald on the 23rd of April and the news section. Alba submits Harvey confidence motion following Cass review response by Craig Williams. Scottish Green co-leader and government minister Patrick Harvey could face a confidence vote in Holyrood. The Alba party announced on Tuesday its Holyrood leader Ash Regan is submitting a motion of no confidence in the minister, which could force a vote he would almost certainly win. The motion comes over Mr Harvey's failure to say if he accepts the finding of the Cass review in an interview on Monday. Asked 5 times if he accepts the report, the minister refused to say, instead claiming it has been politicised and weaponised against trans people. The review, published earlier this month, highlighted a lack of evidence for some treatments of transgender young people and decried the toxic debate around the issue. The motion would require support from 25 other members in Parliament before it could force a vote, but the joint members of the SNP and Greens would likely be enough to save Mr Harvey's job. Ms Regan, who defected from the SNP to Alba last year, said the motion of no confidence speaks for itself. The Scottish Greens wish to side with ideology over clinical evidence. I'm hopeful that MSPs will put good governance first, ahead of party lines, and support the motion. The motion creates an awkward position for some SNP MSPs who are known for their gender-critical stance and antipathy to the Greens. Fergus Ewing was suspended from the party at Holyrood's group for a week after voting for a similar motion to sack Green co-leader and government minister Lorna Slater, meaning disciplinary action could be taken against those who defy the SNP whip this time round. The motion comes as senior SNP MP backed the power-sharing deal between the two parties. Alison Thulis, the MP for Glasgow Central, said the Butte House Agreement has brought the best of our parties and the best of our policies together. Speaking on BBC Radio Scotland on Tuesday, she said, I very much support the Butte House Agreement. I think the partnership with the Greens has brought the best of our parties and the best of our policies together, and I would support it staying. Asked if she believed SNP members should be given a vote on the deal, she said, from the SNP members I've been speaking to over the weekend, I don't perceive a huge groundswell of people calling for that. That may be something we wish to consider, but certainly I support the Butte House Agreement, and I think that has been a positive thing. And that was by Craig Williams. The Herald on the 23rd of April and the news section. Lochfine Hostel and Spa in Inveraray, Scotland, country hotel win by Ian McConnell. Lochfine Hotel and Spa in Inveraray emerged victorious in the Best Country Hotel category in this year's prestigious Scottish Hotel Awards. The success of the hotel, which is part of Crerar Hotel Groups, follows sister hotel Isle of Mull Hotel and Spa's success in winning this category in the previous 2 years. Lochfine Hotel and Spa is led by General Manager Neil O'Shaughnessy, who joined in January last year. Crerar noted it invested £765,000 in the hotel's spa and leisure facilities in 2022, part of a company-wide multi-million-pound investment in launching a luxury shore spa. The hotel group said Scotland's Prestige Awards was created to showcase and reward outstanding service within the hotel industry, with all winners voted by the public, making the hotel's win even more special. Not only ideal for a tranquil spa break, but Lochfine Hotel and Spa is also the perfect accommodation to explore Scotland's west coast with its luxurious rooms and suites, not to mention the AA Rosette awarded Cladach Moor Bistro, popular with guests and locals alike. Mr. O'Shaughnessy said it's an honour to be shortlisted and win the title of Best Country Hotel at the Prestige Awards this year. I took on the role of General Manager at the start of last year, and I'm thrilled to lead this fantastic team who continue to inspire me every day. This is an award which is a real testament to the authentic Scottish hospitality we offer to all our guests. He added, it's even more special that the award is voted for by the public. This assures us that our guests have had an exceptional time when visiting, whether this is for a rejuvenating spa retreat or a coastal getaway with loved ones, or both. And that was by Ian McConnell. The Herald on the 23rd of April and the news section. Scotch whisky distillery at Machrihanish, Campbelltown boost by Ian McConnell. R&B Distillers has secured planning permission for its new Machrihanish distillery, which it describes as the first farm-to-bottle distillery in Campbelltown in more than 180 years. Construction of the new distillery is due to start next year, with R&B highlighting its expectation that the project will create up to 20 jobs in the local region over time. R&B also yesterday announced the acquisition of a controlling stake at Cask Share, a global e-commerce platform and bottler of single cask spirits. Commenting on the granting of planning permission for its Machrihanish distillery by Argyll and Bute Council, R&B said R&B purchased the Dury farm in Machrihanish in 2021, and having received the green light for the distillery development, starting with whisky production followed by a full visitor experience, shop and tasting room, will now work with various stakeholders around environmental guidelines and other conditions before beginning construction on the site next year. Machrihanish Distillery will deliver a new single malt whisky for R&B, which owns the award-winning Isle of Raasay distillery. R&B said its planned new single malt, while different in style of spirit and region, will exhibit a similar philosophy around provenance, quality and community regeneration to Isle of Raasay. William Dobby, Managing Director of R&B Distillers, said our Machrihanish Distillery news and cask share majority stake puts us on a clear track towards achieving our vision of becoming the leading new wave spirits business in Scotland. R&B said its plans at Machrihanish to develop a sustainable net zero distilling model that removes any fossil fuel use from the whisky distilling process, using regenerative, environmentally friendly farming practices and creating better biodiversity in the surrounding area. It added up to 20 new jobs will be created in the region over time, having a positive impact on the local economy. Mr. Dobby said that the rubber stamp for the distillery marks a major milestone in our journey in Campbelltown. When the whisky becomes of age, our investment will go beyond production, attracting visitors to the region and supporting the local economy in a similar way to our existing distillery on Raasay. We're excited to be making this investment in Campbelltown and supporting the local economy through jobs and visitors. This milestone has particular significance to our family, as my father Bill's family come from Drumlemble, a small village between Machrihanish and Campbelltown. He added, we would like to thank everyone who has helped us get to this stage, including Argyll and Bute Council, neighbouring whisky producers Glen Scotia and J&A Mitchell, and most importantly our customers and partners for continuing to support R&B and our brands. R&B Distillers reported revenue of £5 million for the year to December 31, 2023. It now sells in 40 markets worldwide after launching its Isle of Raasay gin in mid-2019 and its Isle of Raasay single malt at the end of 2020. The company has set its sights on growing annual sales to more than £25 million in the next decade. Cask Share specialises in offering whisky fans single cask whiskies by the bottle, including Scotch whiskies, R&B owned brands and world whiskies, and enables producers to sell directly to consumers worldwide, R&B noted. Flagging its plans for Cask Share, R&B set its plans to add other cask-aged spirits such as rum and cognac over time, and will initially target markets in Europe and the US. And that was by Ian McConnell.
That concludes this week's edition of the Herald Scotland podcast. Please remember to subscribe to our channels at Tune Review and to tell your friends about our service.